Welcome to FRC Media News for Thursday, June 11th, 2020. I'm Keith Tebow. This week, we bring you portions of our interview with new Fall River Police Chief Jeffrey Cardoza. We discuss the George Floyd killing and its impact in Fall River, as well as his plans to move the department forward. The Fall River City Council this week turned down Mayor Coogan's call for a one-month spending plan to start fiscal year 2021. Phase 2 of Massachusetts reopening is underway. We hear from the governor as well as how it will impact local businesses. And a pair of college students are working to seek out those who have yet to complete the 2020 US Census. We'll have all that coming up. The Fall River City Council this week unanimously confirmed Mayor Coogan's choice of Jeffrey Cardoza to serve as Fall River's next police chief. He's coming in at quite a time, with the country in the middle of a pandemic and dealing with racial tensions after the death in Minneapolis of George Floyd. A 30-year veteran of the FRPD, Chief Cardoza told us this week he considers Floyd's death at the hands of officers to be murder and not representative of all police officers. He said at demonstrations held in the city over the past week, he made a point to listen to those in pain and is already working on plans to make changes to how officers deal with arrests.
One of the things that we're doing right now as we speak, we've been doing it for the last several days, is we're looking at our use of force policy. And there's a lot of media attention, if you will, a lot of suggestions about a particular program called 8 Can't Wait. And it's 8 things that can be in a use of force policy that will is shown to reduce use of force complaints and deadly force. So we're looking at that. And I've been in a lot of discussions with Mayor Coogan. He has a lot of great ideas. He wants to get a few groups together for some dialogue. We're going to put I had a conversation with him today about putting a panel of officers together to engage in this dialogue. So there's a lot of different things going on. I really think the answer to this, one of the answers I should say, is about relationship building and listening to both sides and having some empathy. And we're all about building bridges and not tearing them down. So we're going to do everything we can to hear what the folks here in Fall River have to say and respond to it accordingly.
Protesters from across the country have been rallying around the cry of defunding the police as a way to force change within the ranks. Chief Cardoza feels that there are some better options.
I could tell you that speaking with some of the officers around the building, they think it means get rid of the police and completely eliminate police organizations. And I'm aware that at least most of the people that are proponents of that's not exactly what they mean. It's concerning. Obviously, I'm not in support of that. I believe that we need to have organizations that not only investigate crime but also deter crime. So it's not something that I would be in support of. However, I have some suggestions certainly and some ideas that where maybe additional funding could go. I know those who are proponents of defunding the police might think, well, this is just going back into the police budget, but I look at it a little bit differently. I would like to see additional funding go into recruitment in the area of, especially in the area of Black officers. And I also would be interested in having a significant amount of more training as far as it comes to diversity and biases, implicit and explicit type bias. I think, it's an area that we need to invest in better.
With police on the forefront of just about all public safety calls, they're often asked to perform duties for which they are not trained. Chief Cardoza is looking at ways to take some of the burden off his officers.
The mayor and I have had conversations about just recently about trying to get some funding, and I would like to get recovery coaches as far as addiction issues go in the cruises. I know that other places in the Commonwealth, other police departments have had some success with that, so it's something that we're working on. And also, I'd like to see some type of social workers, if you will, involved in our calls for service that are related to, emotionally disturbed people, mental health issues. So it's something that we're discussing actively. I think there is a place, if you will, to work with other agencies closely. I can tell you that we have a domestic violence advocate that works in our building. She does a fantastic job, and like anything else, she first came here, there was a little bit of anxiety associated with that. What does this mean for us as an agency? But once the officers see that the success and how much training and how much assistance she can provide, she's fully embraced now. So I think there's a place to bring in other organizations to step in when it's really not in our wheelhouse, so to speak.
The foundation of Chief Cardoza's experience rests with his work in community policing, being one of the first officers to work within such a program here in Fall River. His intent is to expand the program here in the city, working closely with local neighborhood associations.
I want to bring command staff. I will be at those meetings. I want to get out in the community. It's important to get the officers out from inside that cruiser, and that barrier, if you will, of that door is just that's not where you build a relationship. So that's our plan: transparency, honesty. If we're wrong, I'm going to tell you we're wrong. I'm going to admit it, and obviously ask for forgiveness, if you will, from the community, and we'll correct our mistakes as we go along.
Now, an update on what's been happening across the Commonwealth concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. Governor Charlie Baker this week announced the beginning of Phase 2 in reopening businesses across the state. During a press briefing last Saturday, the governor outlined some of the businesses that can reopen.
The start of Phase 2 is a bright spot for our Commonwealth. It marks progress and will hopefully breathe new life into our economy for more sectors like retail, restaurants, and lodging. We know the closures have been extraordinarily difficult. And as governor, these are in some respects some of the most challenging decisions I could ever imagine having to make. But thanks to the cooperation of so many, the trends have been moving in the right direction, and we're now able to reopen many of these businesses. We're also expanding the list of outdoor recreation opportunities so that families can enjoy time outside of pools, playgrounds, and spray decks. As online learning winds down for K through 12, I'm both relieved and happy that our efforts to fight COVID-19 have resulted in this particular milestone today. Parents have been putting up with a lot for the past several months, and I hope Phase 2 will offer some different kinds of outlets for kids. Another important part of Phase 2 is the return of preventive healthcare services. For months, our healthcare providers, our hospitals, and doctors have pushed off annual exams and procedures like mammograms, colonoscopies, and heart screenings due to COVID-19. These important medical procedures are green-lighted in Phase 2. Our healthcare providers have done an incredible job of managing us through COVID-19, and they can safely and effectively manage other healthcare needs. And we urge our medical providers to reach out to your patients, particularly those with pre-existing conditions or vulnerable circumstances, and schedule those appointments soon.
Phase 2 of the reopening is going to be taking place over 2 steps. Here is what is new in terms of business sectors that can open right now. Retail stores will be allowed to be open with some occupancy limits. Restaurants can offer outdoor seating only. Childcare facilities and day camps with detailed guidance also are allowed to be opened. Youth and adult amateur sports leagues will begin. Hotels and other lodgings with no events, functions, or meetings allowed. Funeral homes will be allowed to be reopened with some occupancy limits. Some outdoor recreational facilities are allowed to be open, as well as warehouses and distribution centers. Also open now, post-secondary, higher education, and vocational tech schools and other schools for the purpose of completing graduation requirements. And finally, during Step 1, some personal services without close contact, such as home cleaning, photography, window washing, and career coaching and educational tutoring, now available. The second step of Phase 2, at a time to be determined, some restaurants will be able to offer indoor table service. Some close contact personal services such as hair removal and replacement, nail and skin care, massage therapy, makeup salons, tanning salons, tattoo piercings, and personal training will be offered under Step 2. This new phase of reopening is welcome news to members of the One South Coast Chamber. Co-CEOs Michael O'Sullivan and Rick Kidder says that even though there are restrictions, retail and restaurants are ready to get back to work.
It's good to know that the governor has opened up the retail. There's limitations, and you need to be safe, and so you need to be careful with a lot of those things. But the retail businesses are excited to be able to be open. On the restaurant side of it, they're really excited. There's a lot of restaurants were prepping for this. Since the last time the governor had spoken about the reopening, he had said, he mentioned some dates, and there was a possibility it could be June 8th. So some of them went forth with that plan. But the restaurants that are open are extremely happy. Some of them in Fall River are struggling with some of the communication with the city and what's required and what is not, but they'll get through that as well.
And I think it's important to note that although I don't have local numbers on this on a national level, restaurants report that 60% of them still lost money while they were in the takeout and delivery mode. That, of course, the takeout and delivery will continue, but the ability now to be able to seat customers and be able to staff accordingly is something that I think is really exciting for these restaurants. They're going to differ with their ability to reopen. Some of that is, do you have a parking area that you can convert into an outdoor space? Do you have a patio already? If you have a patio already, it makes your life a little bit simpler. But the city of New Bedford, and I'm sure the city of Fall River, are kind of doing their best to try to come up with some parameters that make sense and can do this in an expedited manner. But it still has to go through an approval process, and it still has to go through inspection process and whatnot in order for them to open. So I wouldn't think that many of them are going to be flying open their outdoor seating today. But now at least they're going to start processing those applications and get it going.
Local Fall River businesses are excited about their ability to offer new services to customers. Jim Souza at New Boston Bakery tells us that he is expanding his takeout business to now include serving people in person outside.
Phase 2 we just opened up 2 days ago with, and it has also been a little quiet. I think maybe just the word not being out there as much yet. We just put it out on our Facebook and our website about it, but today seems actually like it's picked up a little bit more because of that. So I think as the word gets out there and people get accustomed to knowing it, I think it's going to pick up each day. One thing I never used to do, but I do now, is post what our daily specials are on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and it has really dramatically changed business for the better. So people actually like that. So it's kind of something I didn't do prior to COVID, and I think it's something I should have done, and I'm glad I do it now.
Mr. Souza tells us, however, that not all his employees were willing to come back to work under the restrictions put forth by the state.
The ones that are with me now came back willingly, even though they had time off, and they were getting their extra $600 a week, I'll say. And a couple of them, one of them came back, refused to wear the mask, which is required by the state, and I want to follow the state regulations. So that person actually quit because she didn't want to wear a mask. And one other one refused to call me back to even come back to work. So I'm assuming that's part of the reason too. I don't know because I haven't heard any response back. But in general, I respect the people that have come back and trying to bring our business back and bring the economy back. So I really appreciate who has come back.
We'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Unit Clerk, Corrigan Mental Health Center, located at 49 Hillside Street, has an immediate need for a full-time unit clerk, responsible for opening and maintaining the paper and electronic medical records for all patients admitted to the inpatient unit. Job number 136-43428. School Counselor, Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, located at 251 Stonehaven Road, is in need of a full-time school counselor to facilitate outreach efforts, providing guidance and counseling services to students and their families. Job number 136-41970. Counter Help Deli Worker Drive-Through Associate. New York Bagel Company, located at 1572 President Avenue, has an immediate need for a part-time counter help deli worker drive-through associate to work in a fast-paced coffee deli shop preparing food and beverage for customers. Job number 136-31006. Tradesman International Incorporated is in need of these full and part-time positions in the Fall River area. Painter Apprentice, job number 136-39353. Journeyman Plumber, job number 136-39355. South Coast Health System, located at 363 Highland Avenue, also has an immediate need for the following full and part-time positions. Cardiac Cath Laboratory Assistant, job number 136-42343. Patient Access Intake Representative, job number 136-43547. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome back. The Fall River City Council this week voted 8-1 to delay Mayor Paul Coogan's appropriation for a 1-month budget to pay for expenses this July, the first month of the new fiscal year. The council instead is looking for options from the administration on what a full fiscal year 2021 spending plan may look like. In opposing the 1-month budget, Councilor Sean Kadim said the city should base a budget on 2020 revenue figures, allowing for cuts to be made now instead of later this fall.
When we're laying more people off come September because we should have been preparing for level services, level funding in June, and we just chose to kick the can down the road like we always do because that's Fall River, right? That's what Fall River does. Fall River continues to kick the can down the road, hoping we're going to get a bailout, hoping we're going to get one-time money. That's what we do, right? And if you all want to continue to do that and wait for the CARES Act and hope that, net school spending is going to be reduced and all this other stuff, as opposed to saying, okay, listen, let's take level funded, let's see what the cuts are, and let's have those conversations. Because we as counselors need to know exactly what that means. Does that mean 5 police officers? Does that mean 5 firefighters? Does that mean 10 clerical staff? Or do we want to try to work things out or change things around? Because by the time we get to this conversation, there are going to be more police, more fire, more people laid off. And if it's not this year, then it's going to be in FY22 because that's going to be worse when we don't have CARES money. And then the state aid is not where it needs to be. And then you're not getting your level funded on state aid at that point.
Linda Pereira was the lone councilor to vote against the wishes of her colleagues, even though she agrees the city should not wait too long to approve a complete city budget. It's better for city employees to be allowed to continue to work until the revenue numbers are worked out.
If we can do a month-to-month for June and July, just those 2 months, to see what money does come in, what we have, what we can use certain money on, go from there. To start laying people off or do this or that when we don't know. We don't know what other money we're going to get. And yes, is it going to be tough next year too? I agree with you, Sean. It will be tough next year too. But all I'm saying is for 2 months, I can't really vote on a budget like you're saying, okay, let's vote on the whole budget and then we'll make changes along the way. Let's take cuts now, do this, do that. I don't think that that's fair to people. I think you've got to wait and see. We don't know what we're getting.
During our weekly conversation with Mayor Coogan, he said the state gave cities the option to put forth a 1/12 budget until the revenue numbers can be finalized. He agrees that it's unfair to give city employees a mixed message about possible cuts at this time.
I've been in these situations when I worked in schools. Every year, they would issue you a pink slip, and it turns your family, your life into upheaval. I'm not doing that in government center or for the city of Fall River till we know where we stand. I never liked those blanket slips. Oh, you may lose your job. We're not doing that. We're going to look at this strategically and decide the best way to go. Now, if the councilors have any ideas about how to save money, they can bring them forward to us. We met with most of them, and we told them what our thought was to buy the time to the end of July and see what kind of numbers we get out of the state, what kind of numbers we got out of the federal government, and go forward from there. I think we still have $7.3 million in reserves. There are things we can do. We're just not ready to pull the trigger on those things right now.
Also at the council meeting this week, the body voted unanimously on a motion by Councilor Trot Lee to ask the Public Safety Committee to meet with the police chief and the police board to proactively devise strategies to address racial disparities and a call to the end of violence.
Most people in our community do not collectively see racism every single day, but we start to see it when things get escalated, in many different ways. And I think it's our responsibility, it's the police department's responsibility and our community's responsibility to start discussing this, and from the police perspective to be what the key word in that resolution is, proactive. So that way we're not at the escalated point anymore, and we're able to have things in place that hopefully will suppress any kind of escalation, and doing it the right way, not just with any type of physical force from the police department, but also from a standpoint of reaching out to the community and making sure that voices are heard. And if there are any discrepancies or if there's just straight up violations that are occurring from that perspective, that we have things in place to address it and people can see real results from it.
As we head toward the summer, we have to start preparing for the state primary election, which will be held on Tuesday, September 1st. The State Elections Division has finalized the Democratic and Republican primaries. Here's what the Fall River ballot will look like. As you can see, there's quite a list of candidates running in the Democratic primary. Everyone in the Commonwealth will choose between incumbent Senator Ed Markey or Congressman Joe Kennedy for the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate. There are 9 candidates running on the Democratic side to fill Congressman Kennedy's seat in the 4th District. Now, the remainder of the Democratic primary ballot, pretty much everyone's running unopposed. Our 2 county commissioners, incumbents John Mitchell and Paul Kitchen, are both up for re-election. There's a leaner ballot on the Republican primary side of things, with 2 candidates running to challenge the Democrats for the U.S. Senate, as well as 2 candidates running to challenge those in the 4th Congressional District. Congressman Bill Keating looks like we'll have a Republican challenger for Congress in November, as well as State Representative Paul Schmidt, as Evan Gendrew is looking to win the Republican nomination. Nancy C. Stanton Cross is also going to be challenging the 2 county commissioners for that seat. And we'll have more FRC Media News right after this.
Thank you for considering a homeless pet today. I hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and as always, please feel free to contact the shelter before coming down to make sure that the pets you're viewing are still available for adoption. We can be reached at 508-677-9154.
Welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today we have Chico. Chico is a 10-month-old Chihuahua. As you can see, he's very handsome. He's a long-haired Chihuahua. He can be a little nervous. He does like to hide under chairs and behind your feet. But once he gets comfortable with you, he's really sweet, comes out of his shell. He can be a little nervous with strangers. He doesn't show any signs of aggression. Being only 10 months old, training should be pretty easy and definitely recommended. Not only will it show him what is acceptable behavior and what is not, but it will also help him to come out of his shell. So if you want to meet this little love bug, come on down to Forever Paws at 300 Linwood Street and say hi.
Today we have Anna. Anna here, as you can tell, she's a little scared. She's trembling a little bit. She is an older, shy cat. She was a surrender to us, and she spent most of her life with, in the same place with the same owner. So this is very much out of her wheelhouse. She does come around to people over time. You just gotta, make the effort. I would say no dogs for her. I think it would just be a bit way too much, for her. Other cats, she is used to living with other cats. We're looking for someone special with the patience to be able to accommodate Miss Anna here. So if you do think that's you, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
And finally this week, if you have not done so, there's still time for you to take part in the US Census. The city has received a grant from the Secretary of State's office to conduct local outreach to get everyone counted. College students Katarina Pereira and Cheyenne Forsey are going to public locations across the city to get those who haven't done so to register.
Starting in a couple weeks, we're generally going to be set up on the boardwalk, the rail trail, as I mentioned before. We will also be at United We Feed events, at the YMCA, at farmers markets around the city. We will be promoting it, just promoting the census to fill it out, and also be adding promotional flyers into the grocery bags at each of the events. Most likely we will just be tabling just in case so that social distancing rules are enforced. But yeah, definitely the boardwalk, the rail trail, and any United We Feed events around the city.
And we have flyers in English, Spanish, and Portuguese to hit most people in the city. And we'll be doing some promotional things online, advertisements, and videos so that people know even if they're not going out to these events.
We can't stress enough, the information that is provided on the census is safe and confidential, and it helps the city tremendously. Even over the next 10 years, it'll help give funding to education or neighborhoods that are in most need. If just by filling out the census, it'll just help Fall River so much.
The deadline to take part in the online census has been extended to October. Our Dinner Time With series this week continues Friday at 6 p.m. with a performance by Roots Run Wild. Feel free to check them out right here on Channel 95 as well as on our Facebook page at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. That's all for this edition of FRC Media News. We invite you to check out our website, frmedia.org, for all the latest in terms of our coverage of COVID-19, as well as our latest offerings on Channel 95. Now, this program can be viewed on Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Fridays at 5:30 p.m. For all of us here at FRC Media News, I'm Keith Tebow. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Thursday.